Yeah, that's the intro. So welcome to LetsDoHumans podcast.
Thank you very much. Listen to you, it doesn't actually surprise me, because the thing is, I just noticed that we have something in common.
Yeah.
This idea of motivating and inspiring the youth. That's something I've always into, and actually, I'm thinking about starting kind of youth organization in this perspective. I've been thinking of this, for the past few years now. And about just a few weeks ago, maybe 1 or 2 weeks ago, I messaged a friend of mine concerning this issue. I just told myself I have to start working on it. It shouldn't be something I'm thinking about anyway. It should be
Most
something
definitely.
into action. Yes, I like the idea of being there for the youth, because today, we are lost. The youth today. I was talking to a friend of mine yesterday, and we talked to the idea of being in the external aspect of life, as in we see things from the outside instead of seeing things from the inside. And since our eyes and our awareness is fixed on the outside, and we've been blocked through all these materials and everything, so it becomes difficult for us to to come back deep into ourselves and being aware of ourselves, and obviously to be aware of everything that is going on around us. You have to be aware of yourself. So this idea is something that is missing in our society.
Most definitely. And I think one of the things that I tend to find with a lot of young people nowadays is making sense of it all. Because in terms of like, when you come into this world, there's no guidance for your parents. There's no guidance for the environment that you're going to be put in. So whatever circumstances you're put in, you're then having to now make the best out of it, make sense of it, either on your own or with someone who doesn't even understand it themselves as well. So it's like two confused people trying to lead each other. So what I tend to find is that a lot of young people in particular, they're not being guided as to how to make sense of it, how to find purpose. And in particular, men, I tend to find out with men that they lose that sense of purpose. And when you lose that sense of purpose, someone else is going to then project their idea of what the world should be onto you. And that can lead you into any direction, whether it be right or wrong.
And the worst thing is that these youth are the ones that are going to grow up tomorrow, and are going to lead the children as well. So it becomes a circle. I think the thing is, it is not something that starts from our generation. Something that started from maybe the generations before. So it's just become something like a circle. And as years and centuries pass by, it becomes worsened.
Yeah, definitely.
That's right.
I was actually speaking to a couple of friends in relations to like the African community and us men finding our purpose. And what we're discussing is that initially when we came here as a first generation, so our parents migrated here either with us or had us in Europe or wherever it may be, their purpose and their mission was completely different to what would have maybe have been more holistic for us as children and raising children, because they were focused on working and survival. And that was kind of the mantra that they led their lives by. They're waking up early in the morning, going to 3, 4, 5 jobs in a day before they come home. So there's no communication. There's no time to actively raise the children. So by the time your children reach a certain age where it's completely difficult to then penetrate and have an influence in their life, they've already been raised by either the system or by people around them. And that's where the influence comes from.
That's why there are so many, I think through my observation, when you go to the street, you see, especially here, I'm talking here concerning France.
Yeah.
See more of the black community and the Arabic community in the street, more than you see the white communities.
Yeah.
I think it comes back to what you just mentioned, because, the parents are out to work and, find something for the family, and then the children, the only way to survive in inverted comma is to be social with other people. So that's how they go into street and come into so many things that maybe are good for them, and the other side as well.
Yeah, that's definitely true. I can see you're wearing the t-shirt from the cover of your book. What's the book called again? Is it
Intrinsic Awareness?
Intrinsic Awareness, yeah. What's the story behind that book, and what's a bit about your background, like in terms of what you do? Because I can see loads of books there, so you're a very learned man.
No, I'm learning. Let's put it up. I'm learning.
Yeah.
So the thing is, I've been, when it comes to knowledge, it's been my, should I say, mantra, for since I can remember. So I value learning so much, and seeking, and it can be in any field. It can be in science, in philosophy, psychology. I just like learning. But when it comes to thinking, and what brings about my book is that for the past few years, maybe 10 years now, I've been compiling and writing poems and epigrams and short stories. So the thing is, and I also discuss with people about different topics like how we're doing now, just not in podcast. So the thing is, in 2017, I think, I had a discussion with 3 individuals on Instagram. They were just youths, about maybe 15, 16 or 17 girls. One of them was from Canada. The other one is Indian. And the other 2, they were Indians, I think. So the thing is, the story is that they were going through some difficulties in their life. And so one of them actually attempted suicide at least once or twice. And the other 2 we were thinking of committing suicide. So the thing is, I discussed with them, and everything went well. And also around that time, I've been receiving feedbacks about my quotes and my tests on Instagram, so the healing, let me put it that way. So that was when I thought to myself, was just in the beginning of 2018, about maybe around July or so. I just thought to myself, maybe if I should compile my works and put it out there, maybe it can be of help for some. So that was how I just started compiling my works and started making some sketches, which I also put in the books. And it also contains photographs, because as I said earlier on, I'm interested in almost everything.
Yeah, welcome to the club. Yeah.
Almost everything. So I also make sketch and draw, I paint. So
amazing.
Some of those things are also in the book.
Yeah, I think that's pretty much quite similar to me, because I mean, growing up, I'm always telling people, I quite struggled in the conventional educational system. So funny enough, I only read my first book outside of secondary school. In secondary school, I read one book of Mice and Men, which was compulsory to write our English exam. But after that, I read my second book near enough at the age of like 21, 22. And the reason being is because other reasons, apart from being like slightly dyslexic, is also that I couldn't find a lot of stuff that I was interested in to complete. So whenever I pick up a book, I might read 1 or 2 pages. I'll struggle to read it. I don't find it interesting in the first place, and then I put it aside. But yeah, and that's a major problem. But as I got older and I started finding things that actually intrigued me through having conversations with people outside of my sort of like environmental circle, I realized that there's so much variety out there. There's so much of interest, and that's how I got involved in that's how I even ended up with a dynamic group of friends, a very mixed demographic. I ended up reading and finding interest in so many various things, and those are the things that now I'm trying to introduce to other people who I feel might be in the same situation as me. They don't have that exposure as such, or they just don't know that there's anything else out there. So yeah, reading definitely is one of my favorite pastimes now, but I'm going to shift from reading books to audiobooks, because yeah, definitely.
I find out that, sitting down let's just say it bluntly, I'm lazy.
Yeah. Most of us are.
So the thing is, now I buy the book because I like having the physical. So I buy the book, and I also buy, I have a contract with Audible.
Oh yeah, so every monthly subscription.
So thing is, I buy the book and the audiobook. I listen to it at the same time I read the book. So
okay.
Yeah. So at times, when I just drop the book, maybe in the street, I'm walking, I continue, listening to the book. Then when I get to somewhere where I can sit down, then I pick up my book and then I continue.
Yeah, definitely. I think that's the shift that I'm making now. I'm going to stick to that because it will probably make you more productive in terms of the amount of information that you can soak up and what you can take in. So what's the main is there a main concept in your book? Like what's the continuous flow?
The thing is, it is divided into, I think, 8 parts. So as I said, it is compilation of previous works. So the thing is, it is that there are about 8 parts of it. So there's a part I talked about belief, more of belief system, about belief in God. So in that aspect, I open up about a challenge, an open question about does God exist? Or more of, is God behind the evil that is going on in the society, which is actually one of the question I asked in the video you watched.
Yeah.
Asked a question like that. So I opened up with that, and it's more of it is not they are not tests to kind of tell you or to preach to you about God or something like that. It is more of poems, That's why I call it faith, about faith. That you're talking about some divine something or your belief in something, but it is not it is not actually kind of inviting you to to believe in, and it's more of a question, and put it that way. And then you have the path where I talked about the importance of women in the society. Then the parts of which is more of romantic poems, and other parts which are more of of tolerance and of peace and tolerance. Then other parts which is of endurance and patience, which is more of to motivate and to inspire people that are maybe going through some difficulties. And then the parts which I actually like, it is more of should I say philosophical aspects, just a short part. It's my thinking about time. They're just like one phrase or few sentences, something I just think about time. One of it is like the future is nothing else but a fragment of the past which has not yet been exploited. Some phrases like that. And then the other, then the last part is a dialogue I had with 6 people actually. And the dialogue,
6 actual people, is it
6 people, 6 of my friends actually. So I put the dialogues because I found them interesting. And one of the reasons why I included the dialogue is that I've been reading published poetry works. I've come across, I wanted to do something special instead of just writing, giving the message out. It's a part which will be more of, something like a discussion that reader will be able to relate with. When you're discussing, the reader will be able to think maybe, when
like self-reflecting on ideas.
Exactly, self-reflecting. Maybe it's right, maybe it's wrong, something like that. So that's why I added the dialogue aspect of it.
Oh, sounds amazing. I'm definitely going to check it out after this. I'm definitely going to purchase it. Is it an audio or is it just strictly?
Just in written form.
Oh, okay, I'll have to buy the written form and then check it out that way. Then, even though I was shifting through, but I'll definitely support it now.
Honestly, it's not a huge. It's not. It's not.
Okay.
It's a huge. It's a huge. It's about 300 pages, but just poems. Phrases.
Did you study philosophy yourself?
I'm studying philosophy personally. The thing is, I had interest in philosophy. It's just a personal interest. So the thing is, I've been doing philosophy. Let me just say philosophizing. That's actually studying philosophy. So recently, when I'm, actually going to studying philosophy myself, I have books that I'm reading. I don't actually study philosophy in school. I studied just a year in the final year of high school. So, and that's it. So when I started, doing research on philosophy myself, it becomes, easier because this most of the things that come through are the thing I've thought through myself. So it becomes, let's say easier to.
Yeah, I think one of the things that our generation probably struggles with is critical, like being critically analytical, because what tends to happen now is that I think ideas are being thrown at us at such a quick pace, and it's such a fragmented and various forms of ideas because of technology that we have now, is that it becomes very difficult to think. It's just a case of picking one and sticking to it, or being emotionally pushed and then going with the flow type of thing. And when people always ask me, how do I critically analyze stuff, is what I do is whenever a conversation comes up in society, for instance, I would grab that idea and then I'll shoot as many bullets on it as possible. I'll just think, okay, how can I break down this idea? What if I think about it from this side? What if I think about it from this angle? And then try and answer my own questions. And through that, you end up finding that you come up with so many varied ideas of your own, and you're not just kind of being sucked into someone's ideology, because ideologies can be dangerous as well, and they're so varied, because one person's ideology could be someone's complete hatred and misunderstanding of that person's ideology. So it's a tricky place to be in this era, and having to deal with like philosophical ideas.
I think the problem is actually, the first thing is there's something in actually it's in psychology known as cognitive laziness.
Yeah.
The problem is to think is a problem. It's a problem. The problem is to think is a problem. It demands some. It's like a muscle. Your brain is like a muscle. It's like say abstract muscle. So if you've not run for some time and you start running, it's going to be difficult. It's the same thing. To think is kind of, it's not difficult, but it's difficult at the same time if you're not practicing it. And at the same time, it's also related to your emotion. Two options. One that is pulling your emotion, and the other one that is inviting you to think.
Yeah.
Look, instinctively, we tend to follow the emotion because, we're emotional being, and that requires less cognitive effort. And that's why we are, if you see most of these movies or messages in the internet that have some agendas behind them, they're all, portrayed through emotion. If you watch, for example, TED Talks, most of the talks in the internet, or be it in the internet or anywhere, that are very interesting, that people grab easily, are talks. Most of them, they have one thing in common. There are stories in them.
Yeah.
And why are these stories? Because why do the speaker use stories? Because stories are filled with emotion. So most of the messages we are receiving today are filled with emotion. And since we are not practically thinkers, we tend to, deal with situations without even thinking of, is it the right thing?
Yeah.
Look what I'm talking about. What I'm trying to say. So it's like, I used to give an example about, I think I found the example, the story somewhere. I can't remember, but I like giving this example. I'm walking in the street and I saw someone shouting, no, I don't like black. I hate black. No, I just passed through someone, a white man, and he said, I hate the blacks. I don't like them. I'll be thinking like, I'm black. This is a racist.
Yeah. And he's talking about you. You'll be thinking, yeah.
That's the first thing.
Yeah.
Impression. We act on impression. But what I don't know is that the man or the guy was speaking, let's say, with his mother, and the mother was in the store trying to get T-shirts for his son. Oh. And he was telling his mother,
this is like black T-shirt,
like black T-shirts. And I thought he was talking about me. The thing is, there are so many stories, so many things behind the obvious ideas that are presented to us.
Yeah.
Why, we were talking about how you deal with, judgment the other time. When I received something, I was like, I become neutral to it because I don't know what, I don't know the story behind it. You come to me and, you come to my house and you rob me. That is clear. You did something that is very, very wrong. I have the right to sue you. But I don't know your story.
Yeah.
And that's what I'm trying to say. I don't know your story. If I could be patient, if it is possible, of course, other situations it is not possible. Yeah. If it is possible, if I can be patient and try to understand your story, I may actually not only be able to save you from prison, but be able to build a better life for you. Yeah. Because the thing is, most of the people in the world today that are evil, let's say evil, they have a story behind them. That doesn't excuse the acts that they are doing. That is true. But there are so many people, they just need some motivations. They just need a push out of the let's say the unfortunate world they find themselves. And the unfortunate thing is that today we don't go deep into ideas, into situations. We don't try to look
definitely not
heart of people. We don't. One thing I used to say, it is impossible, but try to look. Try to understand people's thinking, which obviously it is impossible to see what people are thinking, but try to understand them. Try to,
Yeah, I think the issue is that, especially when it comes to like clashing and taking your time to figure out people's situation, circumstances, that nowadays everyone goes into situations either trying to win or dominate instead of looking for peace and resolution. That's the problem. And with the first part, it's like if you're looking to win and dominate, you're going with emotion because you're either angry or extremely passionate about something. And in that state, it's very difficult for you to think rationally, because emotions can drag you to where you don't want to possibly go, and it might take you too far, or it might be your shortcoming to being unable to solve a situation. But it's like, how do you calm a mass, like a group of people, in order for them to think rationally? Because that's very difficult. You see what I mean? Because on an individual level, you can, if you're that way inclined, but if you're not and you're in a massive group, then it becomes a bit more difficult.
The thing is, I've never found myself in this situation. It's one thing. But what I would say is, it also depends on the people you find. If they're aggressive people, obviously it's going to be difficult. But if you find yourself, for example, you find yourself in an environment where there are youths, we may be talking about the youth, fighting, for example, arguing or shouting themselves. The thing is, there's one formula. You can never put out darkness with darkness.
Yeah.
That's it. So if you go there, and there's one thing I used to say is, when you're walking the streets and you see a dog barking, what do? Do you leave the dog, or maybe try to calm the dog, or you start barking to the dog? It's impossible. Yeah. So it's either you leave the dog, you ignore the dog, or you try to calm the dog. So it's the same situation. When you find yourself in this kind of environment and you know that it is impossible to calm down, maybe you try, but it is impossible, then you ignore. But what you can do is try to talk. That's just it. That's it. Words are very important.
Yeah.
Also depends on who is speaking. You should know the words that you are going to, bring out to solve the situation. And it also depends on individual. It's actually depends on the group of people and the individual. Everything is contextualized, actually. If I understand you, if I know who you are, I will know how to deal with you.
Yeah.
But deal with you personally the way I'm going to deal. Let's say, for example, I won't deal with you the way I'm going to deal with, let's say, your sister. Because it's not the same psychology. She's a woman, you know. So the same thing when you find this group of people. One thing is, which is obviously kind of impossible almost impossible at the moment, is try to understand who you're dealing with. Yeah. Then you know how you're going to, you know, the words that you're going to put out. But one thing is, you have to be calm, because in that kind of situation, you know, it is easy to lose your calm.
Yeah.
So you're trying to solve a problem, and you are portraying the same acts which you're trying to, you know, you're trying to solve. It's going to be difficult for those people. You know, you have to show, you know, a perfect example. The thing is, you have to be calm. Yeah. Have to talk calmly. Just discuss with them. There's this video that, you know, that became viral about a few years ago. About there's this two black people on the street that were trying to fight over a girl, actually. And there's this guy. His name is Ali. I don't know if you know the video.
I think I know. Is it the two young boys that are about to fight? Yeah.
And then this guy Ali came in. You know the video. So you see how he, you know,
diffused it. Yeah.
You know, it was through calmness and discussion. Everything is through words, not argument, not shouting. And you know, you can pass message with aggression, not really aggression, but with emotion, with firmness, trying to, you know, show that you're firm, like, you know, an aggressive behavior. It is possible,
like controlled, yeah.
And the message will stick. But in this kind of situation, I think the best method is not the, you know, the firm and the aggressive way, but in a calm way, to show the people that, you know, you have to be calm. Yeah. It is useless to be because one thing is, why are they fighting? That's the question. Because you have to defeat the situation, you know, defeat the evil, the root. You have to deal with the situation from the root. If you understand why they're fighting, then you have to show them that what they're fighting for is useless. You know, it's useless to fight on, you know, that kind of
those grounds. Yeah.
Those grounds. If you can show them that way from the root, then they can come to their sense and, you know, understand that actually I'm being
yeah, and it's not making sense. But I mean, talk about calmness and everything else. What do you make of what's happening so far, like 2020? If someone in 5 years' time, if someone says what happened in 2020, how do you make sense of everything that's going on in terms of, like, I mean, first of all, we've been in a very stressful situation in regards to, like, the pandemic. The whole world has been locked down. So many people have lost their businesses. People have been put out of their houses. We're in, like, a financial potential global recession and global depression. Now we've been hit with all of these protests and riots in relations to police brutality in the States, which is now unearthed all of these other various stories across the world of systemic and systematic institutional racism as such. And there's so much happening. There's so much going on. And now we've got tension between India and China. I think aliens are going to probably attack us next week as well, just to top it all off. If someone was to ask you, how do you make sense of 2020? What would you say?
You know, let me answer the question just as it comes to me, as the answer, you know, briefly, instinctively. When you ask the question, the first thing I thought about is this year, 2020, is the best year ever. As for the past decades. Now, people say it's the worst year, but I would say for now, it's the best year. Do you know why? The reason is, this is the year that we human beings, that we are supposed to be the giants of the planet. Cognitive creation are now beginning to wake up, to understand what is going on around us, to understand probably our mistakes. The thing is, everything that we are seeing is not new. It's just that it comes to our door. Unfortunately, we human beings, when something doesn't touch us, we tend to turn a blind eye to it. Now, we're talking about illness, this coronavirus and everything. That it is global. It is something that is very unfortunate, but it's not the first outbreak.
Yeah, it's definitely not.
About 6 years ago, the Ebola outbreak came. It's just that it was limited to Africa.
Yeah.
You understand? And also every year, every single day, people are dying for, even the rate of death that we experience from other sickness, from merely car accident, is over coronavirus.
Oh yeah, definitely. Yeah.
So the thing is, it is unfortunate. It is something that we've just, let's say, never heard of since the past century. So we have to recognize that. But at the same time, we have to realize that this is not the end of the world.
Yeah.
And another thing is, it's actually open, because when we are saying things from the negative sides, which unfortunately is how the world works now, we are kind of negatively biased creature.
Yeah.
That is why the media and everything that, we're bombarded with negative news. Everything. We also have to see the positive aspect of this. People are coming together. Family are visiting themselves, and now there's this. So we are becoming social. Before we're supposed to be social being, but unfortunately, because of the social media, we're becoming unsocial.
Unsociable, yeah.
So the thing is, this coronavirus kind of brings people, it brings us together, and actually it's making us to understand, one, the importance of life, and also the importance of the planet, because the rate of pollution went down.
Yeah, plummeted. Yeah.
Drastically down.
Yeah.
So also, people are waking up to, understand the importance of taking care of the planet, the ecosystem, the animals. So that is something, to me, in the long run, is very beneficial. So I think that there's going to be some kind of a change in attitude in the long run. Even though, I'm sorry.
No, it's fine. Yeah.
Even though, I hope it doesn't. Yeah. I hope it doesn't. But people will come back to forget.
Yeah, we're creatures of amnesia. That tends to be our historical.
And it's, the thing is, I saw something which I've not made a deep research on it, but I think it's true about this outbreak coming every 100 years, every centuries. We have an outbreak in 1918 or so.
It's like Spanish flu. We had a really.
Yeah, and then in 1820 or so, and then in 1720, something like that. So it's like, when you say we're amnesia, it's like every century we forget, and then there's something.
They're reminded again.
That reminds us again.
Yeah.
So how should I put it? Hopefully, that's it. Hopefully, we don't forget. But
Yeah.
I think I'm going to forget. So the thing is, concerning the wars and the racism that's going on, it's the same thing. Everything, all these things have been going on for decades, for centuries.
Yeah.
We talked today about slavery being banned. I believe that we're still in the world of slavery. There's still slavery going on. It may not be a physical slavery where the master is going to whip the individual, but I even think it's the worst of slavery, which is the cognitive slavery. There is this quote I had from, I don't know, maybe it's from a movie or something like that. I think it's one of the ancient, the past, probably religious person said that the slave of the mind is more dangerous than the slave of war.
Yeah. I'm a firm believer in that, because I think when you're a slave of the mind, it's easy for you to be controlled on a deeper level. Because slave of the body is, if I'm working in someone's field, I understand what I'm doing. I understand who's directly controlling me. I understand how they're controlling me. But when it's off their mind, it's almost as if like they press one button, you're triggered. They press another button, you're sad. They press another button, you're depressed, you're stressed, because so many things are happening that you don't know what angle they're coming from. You don't know who to trust.
No. And the thing is, last year, since 2017 and 2018, this is actually the year I started becoming more serious in the books I read. So I came across some things, obviously, which actually went in harmony with some of my thoughts before. It's like validating some of the things I thought. The thing is, before I started reading deep into psychology and everything, my thoughts are based on observation. What I observe people doing, and it may actually be about, based on what I live, my own life experience. But most of it is based on observation. Then when I started reading, going deep into these studies, and I realized that most of these studies actually confirm what I've, thought about. There's something I came across which is very, very interesting. The thing is, the Codewall, we believe that nobody won the Codewall, right?
Yeah.
Between the URSS and the UK in the US, nobody won the Cold War. It was basically an economic war, and then it ended. But I believe that notion, that idea that nobody won, is a lie, because the goal of the Cold War is to take to have on their side the most, the many nations as possible, as going to resemble their way of living, the economy and everything. That's what Russia was fighting for, and that was what US was fighting for. But guess today, most of the world today, most of the nations in the world today, their way of living resembles more
the States,
United States than US.
Never actually thought about it that way.
So actually, US won the war, and how did they win it? This is where it becomes interesting. I came across some information which it doesn't come to me, just it's not from one source. It's actually a known fact today. You actually even know it. The thing is, during the Cold War, there is the American soldiers that were captured by the communists, and then they would come to the television and start saying nonsense about America, about their country actually. Then a few days later, they are going to be released, and they will come back to their senses. And so one thing is, the FBI, they realized that these people have been brainwashed actually. So now the FBI started investigating. Now they become more interested in brainwashing. How they're going to brainwash people, because that is a very great idea, to control people. That is something that is the peak of human discovery, to be able to control other people. So the thing is, they went through so many atrocious experiments on, in colleges, in hospitals, and so many files that today have been destroyed to cover it up. But some of them actually remain. So they came to surface, and that's how the knowledge is known. So many drugs and chemicals were tested, but to no avail, to no avail actually. So the thing is, then they came to realize, I can't remember how they came to realize, that the only way actually, the ultimate way to make someone believe what you want them to believe is to constantly repeat it.
It's confirmation bias, isn't it?
Exactly.
Yeah.
That thing becomes, a great, let's just say, great discovery. So what happened when we watch the TV? So many information that are bombarded.
Yeah.
So one way or the other, the Cold War continued, and the America won.
Yeah.
That's what I'm saying. So the thing is, we today, so many people are not aware of this, of this fact. If you're not, open to all this, to psychology, basically, to reading and to making research, you won't come across all these things. And the thing is, it's not to say that America did this or did that. That's not what I'm trying to say. What I'm trying to say is that today we've become slave.
Yeah.
We thought we are thinking ourselves, but actually there are thoughts that have been put in our heads.
Yeah.
So the thing is, to be free, have the freedom. We talk about freedom today, liberty and everything. In order to be free of action, you have to have a freedom of thoughts.
Yeah.
If you think yourself, then how can you be sure that what you are doing is actually comes to you? It's like someone is up there, without you actually knowing.
Yeah.
Everything comes back to the slavery we were talking about. So we're all slaves.
Yeah. Yeah.
So who knows? Actually, maybe everything I'm saying now is being, has been influenced by something.
Most definitely.
That's one thing that I came to realize in psychology. Our mind is a very powerful thing. There are some things that we do that we don't even, realize it. That we do. They're just instinctive. There's an experiment that is done. I read this book, Thinking Fast and Slow, Daniel Kahneman.
Yeah.
Powerful book.
I haven't read it, but I know it. Yeah.
So there's an experiment that was actually made about two groups of people. So the thing is, they gave them headphone, and they told them it's just to check the quality of the audio, and then the thing is they tune on a radio station or something like that, and they started listening to it. So, and then when they told them to wait, let me try to remember. Yeah, they told them to shake their heads. They gave them the headphone, and then they told them to shake to nod their head. A group nod their head, and the other group to shake their head. So the thing is, after the experiment, they asked them, the group that that nodded their head, what do they think about what was said in the radio? Those that nod their head tend to agree, most of them. And those that shook their head tend.
Yeah. So they've been swayed by the method.
Because just the simple gesture that you made about nodding and show
influenced you.
Has influenced your decision on something. It can actually make a very big difference in your life decision, actually. So many little things that that we do on daily basis that we're not even aware of.
And one of the things that I've realized in terms of like us being controlled now is also one of the most powerful tools now is social media for control, because with social media comes an algorithm. And so, for instance, let's say for instance, I'm a pro-gun person. I live in America and I support ownership of guns. If I go on Facebook right now and read search one or two articles on gun ownership, what's going to happen is the algorithm is now going to put me into that dark hole where all they're going to do is push advertisement regarding my pro-choiceness. So now I'm going to be stuck in this constant loop of confirmation bias. All the articles they're going to show me is why owning guns is a great thing and why I should own a gun. So I'm constantly these ideas are constantly being perpetuated onto me. So how am I even going to have a balanced argument with someone when I exit the world and someone else like, oh, but this is what I think about gun ownership. I don't think it's right, because you're going to be controlled by those ideas that's been pushed on you by the algorithm. So sometimes when things happen in the world, I always take a step back and I try and see things from both sides, especially now that we're kind of living in a more polarized world. I try and always consume content from either side. So if people are arguing, like let's say liberals are arguing versus conservatives, I'll check both sides of the argument, because what tends to happen is if you focus on one side, you're going to be controlled by their agenda and their ideology, regardless of what side you're on. And to me, whoever has that power in terms of the media, social media, in terms of content creation, they will potentially push your narrative, and they'll potentially push their ideologies on you, which is ultimate control. So at the end of the day, if you're always stuck in a echo chamber of ideologies and you're caught up in this confined space of like confirmation bias, how are you truly free? You're not free. You're just soaking up what's being thrown to you.
And there's something I used to do actually about, because the thing is, I like discussing or reading things, ideas that actually contradict my own ideas. Mm-hmm. So it is, when I want to make research, most of the time, or some of the time, probably 50-50, is that when I make research, now, my belief, for example, is that talking about maybe religion exists, and I want to make research about some proof on that. Then when I go to search engine, why does the proof that God doesn't exist?
Yeah. Yeah.
So I actually search through
to confirm your own idea. Yeah.
I actually use most of them. I do that most of the time. I look into the other argument to confirm my own argument. So when, for example, I'm faced with someone who is trying to discuss with me on this idea, I know where the person is coming from. I know to reply that person.
Yeah.
Most of the thing is my own search engine, apart from other contexts, be it in psychology, philosophy, or religion, or all this thing. My search engine is actually everything.
Yeah.
Actually, I receive videos that are to prove to me that maybe liberalism is wrong, and I videos that tell me that liberalism is actually okay. So everything is actually, there is no bias. Let me put it that way.
Yeah.
I think one of the way to actually beat that is to make research based on something you don't believe in. Counter to just like to deceive the algorithm.
Yeah, definitely.
I didn't actually do it for that. It was just my own way of making it, and then just as you say, it's actually benefiting me.
Yeah, no, definitely. I'm pretty much the same as well in terms of like how I research and how I look at stuff, because what I'm tending to realize is that whenever you compare stuff from polar opposites, you realize that there is something in the middle. There's a collaborative energy in the middle, which we should be focusing on, which we should be working towards more. But instead, because we're so stuck in our ideas, it divides us. And it's strange, because when you look at the world holistically, you have to understand that it's very difficult that your idea is the ultimate truth, especially when we're talking about ideologies, because there is ultimate truths. Like ultimate truth is I am here, I am me, and I am a man, and that's whatever your ultimate truth is.
It's actually debatable. I am a man.
Well, now it is in the common state that we're in is debatable. But I classify myself as a biological man, and I classify myself as a man.
I do too.
Yeah, but I know now we can identify. Well, people choose to identify as well, so, which is a whole nother debate in itself as well. So that comes down to, again, what is like ultimate truth as compared to what is optional ideologies that you can live by. So it's a tricky field within itself. Yeah, it's such a tricky. But what's been your take on? Sorry.
Everything is becoming nuanced.
Everything is becoming nuanced, and I mean the problem is that I'm of the belief that okay, people can choose their lifestyle. That's absolutely fine. You can choose your lifestyle. I'm not your God. And I'm not coming to judge you for your lifestyle, and I'll love you and treat you as a fellow human being. But at the end of the day, if we don't have that freedom to discuss that, I think it becomes an issue. Yeah. If we don't have that freedom to be brave and able to question ideas and to question thought, then it becomes an issue. And that's where that's where I stand in regards to like the whole battle for freedom of speech. I understand some people want to use freedom of speech as a clever way to hide their bigotry. Some people, they are human beings like that. But I think majority of people genuinely like the idea of freedom of speech because they want to be able to debate ideas. They want to be able to figure things out collaboratively. And if we take that away, then it's like you have to accept everyone's ideas. That's not freedom. That in itself, people need to figure out that being compelled to take people's ideas as your ultimate truth is not freedom, because where is it going to lead us as a human race? Where is it going to lead us as a people when we're unable to critically discuss and disagree and agree to disagree on ideologies?
The thing is, I'm talking about freedom of speech. I'm absolutely pro freedom of speech. But the thing is, some people use this to insult. There's freedom of speech. You have to understand what freedom of speech is. Freedom of speech is not insult.
Yeah.
Some people just use it to talk and say nonsense, and then you say, I'm free to say what I like. To say what I like, but what you like. But the thing is, it is not because you can do something that you have to do it. Use your brain also. Some things may be legal, by the law, but maybe irrational.
Yeah.
At the same time, and it's just like, I don't know. Just because you can do something doesn't mean you have to do it. Maybe the law doesn't specify that you don't insult, but you can say what you like. But as a human being, I think it is just reasonable that you don't just insult someone else.
Oh yeah, definitely. I think insulting and inciting hate is
it's
different.
There's freedom of speech and there's hate speech. So that hate speech, that is something else. Freedom of speech is to bring people, together, right? I think that's one of the goal. But hate speech doesn't bring people together.
Yeah.
On the contrary, it's, it separates them and it causes, so many problems.
Yeah, most definitely. What's been your take on the whole I know we were discussing it early on a bit, or I brought it up briefly in terms of like the movement, the Black Lives Matter movement and all the protests and riots that's been happening globally. Was there any issues in France in relation to that? Was there any protests and riots in France?
There are protests actually in France, in Paris, actually. Yeah, protests. The thing is, frankly, I don't, follow these stories, deeply. But there has to be protests because this thing have been going on for, people are tired of it. Let's just be that way. People are, tired of it. So there has to be a movement, something, people have to talk, have to express their feelings. But the thing is, you don't. Okay, let me put it this way. You came to me and let's just say you chopped my hand, and in the process, I think the hand is
it's extreme.
Extreme, and is actually a bad example. You came to me and you stole my car, and in the process of wanting back my ck, I came to you and I cut off your head. How am I going to get back my car when I've killed you?
Yeah.
And that's what I'm trying to say. Yeah. So the thing is, in the process of wanting to be heard, we shouldn't be extreme. Because I'm seeing, the images of riots and the streets being, shops being, should I say, being dismantled and everything.
Yeah.
I think in Chinatown, in the US, I think, or something like that. There's so many shops that are closed or something like that, and there's so many riots or something like that that's going on. One thing is, these people that you are, should I say, robbing and destroying the properties, the innocent. I think most of them are innocent. So I think we shouldn't. It's Nietzsche, this German philosopher said.
Yeah, I know Nietzsche. Yeah.
He said, is in his book Beyond Good and Evil. He said, if thou gaze into an abyss, the abyss will also gaze into thee. So what was basically saying is, in the process of wanting to, get rid of evil, you shouldn't become evil yourself.
Yeah.
Definitely, people ask to express themselves. There have to be, riots, and there are peace riots out there. That is. I think that should.
And it's our human right to riot. Most governments also subscribe to the idea of people protesting.
But I think there's just some group of people, probably minorities, that took these things to the extreme and started doing nonsense with it. And the thing I can see here is just that it brings out the human nature of them. It's like people that actually in their hearts have some contempt already. They already have some contempt in them, probably due to what is going on. Yeah. Then these riots and these protests gives them the opportunity to express themselves.
And then they're being used as well by the mob, so their aggression is being.
Everything just go into them, and unfortunately, in the situations we find ourselves with the coronavirus and everything, so I think everything actually plays in the people's psychology to how they react to this thing, because already have been they are frustrated to not go to work and to just stay at home and everything, and then this comes this happened. So I think it contributes to people's frustration. And one thing I would say is, which is I don't know if it makes sense, is it's just like there's someone that wants everything to happen this way.
It seems quite calculated. That's
and when I say someone, I don't actually mean like human being, but it's just like someone wanted humanity to learn something, because first of all, it started from the Muslim concentration camp in China. And then the coronavirus break up in China. And when you look at the coronavirus in China, this example I give to about two. I've already given to about two people, is that when you want to attack an empire, for example, someone wants to attack France, for example, dismantle France's economy. Where do they go? They go to Paris.
Yeah.
If you've taken Paris, you've taken France. It's as if, obviously, I don't mean this literally, but it's just like an alien force wants to attack the planet. Because if the coronavirus landed in Africa, it will be controlled.
Yeah.
One of the reasons why it will be controlled is that the circulation is not very much in Africa. Guess where it landed? It's landed in China, the world economy. Obviously, it's going to change.
All imports and exports. I mean, especially exports are flying out of there
to shake the world. So that happened, and the world is already shaking. And then people started, let's say, coming to their senses about some other things. Then the US, the George Floyd happened. In the UK, and then everything is just it's just as if, the thing is, if the coronavirus didn't happen, the George Floyd case, I don't believe it's going to come this way. It's going to go longer.
I think that the frustration and the build up and the loss that people are going through definitely fueled the reaction a bit.
And also, people will be going to work, You know, many people won't even think of, reacting to it because they're thinking of their work. And so many people, even if they want to react to it, they're thinking of their work. So the thing is, everything just happened as if it is calculated. It just makes me thinking as if God is sending a message to understand something, which I don't know physically, but it's just as if it is calculated when you started studying the way everything starts happening. So going back to the protest, people have to protest, people have to express their emotion, which is unfortunate what is going on. It's just like what I said earlier on about slavery. We thought racism have ended. Ended. It hasn't ended. It is happening. All over the world, be it racism against black, be it anti-Semitism, be it Islamophobia. It's happening. All over the world. It's just that some parts of the world are more than the other, and some parts are more obvious than the other. Some parts of the world it's more Islamophobia, and the other part is more racism. So everything is happening, and it has to stop. And the thing is, I personally don't believe it's going to stop for eternity.
Oh, no, I don't think. No, tribalism is innately built in us, and to me, I see racism as a manifestation of that. So it's like, how do you stop human tribalism? Even if we all change into the same color, we're gonna fight based on hair. We're gonna fight based on our height. We're gonna find something to.
That's why I used to, the argument I used to use against those that that say that religion is, it's like a virus to the human race because it causes brings all these religious wars and everything. But the thing is, if there's no religion,
there'll be blood on our streets.
People is going to be fighting themselves.
Yeah.
Because there's some of the philosophical idea is that man created religion. Because this is actually one of the opening question I asked in my book, is that they say man created religion in order to defeat God. Man created God, in order to defeat the injustice that actually reigned in the society, so that there are so many wars, injustice that's going on. Then some individuals just think about an invisible being, and people are going to fear to create moral, which actually help the human race. That's some philosophical narrations. But the thing is, if man created God to defeat the immorality that's going on in the society, but the immorality exists until today, even when we still have God, and then today we blame the immorality on God. Where man created God to defeat the immorality. The question is, who is to blame on this issue? Is it God that we believe doesn't exist, or man himself? Because even when God doesn't exist, man was irrational.
Yeah.
Now that God exists, it's still irrational. So the thing is, we have to face ourselves as a human race. We have to be able to look into ourselves and understand ourselves. And that's one of the problems we're facing. Between you and I, for example, maybe you did something wrong. That's, something very bad. If I understand myself as a human being, as someone that can make mistakes, and I understand that I'm not perfect, the way I'm going to react to you will be different if I never thought of that. Because now what I'll be thinking is, I'll be pointing my hand to you, you. But if I know that as a human being, I'm not perfect, and then you are also a human being, even though when you do something that is wrong, the way I'm going to deal with it will be more rational, more reasonable. Even if it's going to require some punishment, it will be less barbaric. Let me put it that.
Yeah, no, definitely. I'm a Christian myself, so I'm a believer in God and Christ and so forth. And my thing is that God gave us our faith and our religion and our relationship with him as a guide as to how we're supposed to experience this world, because the world is chaotic. And sometimes when you talk to atheists, what I tend to find is that they always say, okay, if God is so all powerful and almighty, why does he allow so much chaos and so much bloodshed to take place? And I always revert back to them and say, if you take away the morality, the thing of a higher being watching you, from all those people that believe in morality from God or from a higher being, whatever religion that may be, and they take on morality on themselves as a self-proclaimed moral compass, the chaos that is going to ensue is way beyond what you think we're currently facing right now. Because if I have full autonomy, if I have full control of my morality, and there's no bigger higher being that I'm looking out for, then really and truly I should be allowed to take the law into my own hands, and no one else should be allowed to judge me. not the higher being, and nor should other man be able to judge me. And to me, I see religion as is helping to suppress what's innately already in us and what's been proven is in us, because it's being demonstrated all around us. If you look across the world, there's people still committing sin, there's people still murdering and killing, and loads of these people are associated to religions, but many of them are also not associated to religion. So if you take away those who religion is protecting from unleashing the darkness within, then we'll have utter chaos.
That's it. That's actually where nihilism comes to place. And one of the things actually which inspired Hitler to become what he became, the Nazis. That's one of the reasons. It's actually nihilism. One of the thing is, when we start to believe that there's no divine, there's no creation, that me personally, I'm not different from this world. It's just a rearrangement of molecules. And so I have no special value compared to just a stone on the ground. So there's nothing stopping me from raping that girl just to feel my passion, from killing that, the man just to rob his money. There's nothing stopping me, actually. So that's the thing is, society falls apart. This idea that we don't need religion or we don't need God to construct a moral society, as of now, to me, is nonsense, because it's actually what most of the the famous atheists today, like Richard Dawkins or Christopher Hitchens, this actually what they are preaching basically. But the thing is, it doesn't. All this does not prove an absence of a deity. Just because there's a problem in the world, logically, because it's actually logical fallacy to say because there's a problem in the world, there's no God.
Yeah.
It's like me saying, okay, just because the World War took place, then Hitler doesn't exist. It doesn't make sense. So the thing is, coming back to the moral, the moral aspect of it. Humanity needs guidance. Yeah. And I think the only way, the only person that knew the humans to be able to guide them is basically the one who created them. It's just like saying this watch, the only person that really knows how this watch works is one that made it, that created it.
Yeah, it's such an interesting topic of discussion when it comes to like morality and having the autonomy to do whatever we can. Because now when you watch Antifa, for instance, in America, they're supposed to be anti-fascist. Yeah, that's what Antifa stands for. But something intriguing recently happened in America. I think it's in Seattle. So they created an autonomous city. So these group of I don't know if they're all just Antifa, but these group of protesters, they stole about 6 blocks. I don't know if you've been following the story, but it's super interesting. And so they barricaded themselves within the city around one of the police precincts and labeled it an autonomous self-governing city or whatever it is. And it was called Chaz initially. It was a Chaz or Chez, and now they've changed the name to Chop. So in this community, they were to not be policed by the state. They were to build their own like autonomous communities where they grow their own food. So they're thinking about creating their own utopia. But some of the reports that's coming out of it now is that there's actually a warlord in there who's now ruling the place with guns, and he's got guards. And apparently one of the warlords or one of the leaders is a rapper who used to hand out his mixtapes in the city. So they're already creating a hierarchy in there already where they becoming fascist themselves when they were initially labeled themselves as anti-fascist. I don't think that people tend to understand that human beings, wherever we are, we create hierarchies. And when those hierarchies become dominant, there will be those that are beneath, that are at the bottom of that dominance hierarchy. And there's an issue. So when we look at the system, sometimes we need to look at it from a holistic point of view. And if there's issues within the system, attack those issues very specifically, very directly, and with clear and concise ideas. And that's one of the reasons maybe why, when it comes to the Black Lives Matter movement and a lot of movements in general, I'm always a bit skeptical because I don't feel like there is clarity. Do you see what I mean? And we're just under the assumption that we need to tear down something in order to build something else, but we don't know what that something else is. We don't know how that something else looks like.
That's it. Because the thing is, when you tear down a government, what is going to produce will be worse.
Yeah.
I think history have repeated that, especially in these modern days. The same thing that happened in Iraq, the same thing that happened in Libya.
Yeah.
And unfortunately, the same thing that is happening in Syria. We wanted to, tear down the government because we believe it's an unjust government. But the country was better then than it is today. Absolutely.
Yeah.
It's exactly what you mentioned. Attack the problem, but with carefulness. We don't just tear down a government, because when you tear down a government, it's like a city without the police. There's this saying in my country, Yoruba, that said a state which has no law has no sin. That's it. And if a state has no sin,
it's all chaos. Everything goes. Yeah. And yesterday was actually the first time I went onto the Black Lives Matter's website, because I'm all for fighting for the liberation of my people. I'm all for fighting against injustice and tackling things directly, but I don't have the answers. So I'll never ever proclaim to have the answers. But I do know that there's an issue that needs to be tackled, and I'm trying to understand it from my perspective instead of just going with the mob. But when I was reading up yesterday, I realized that there's a lot of talk about defunding the police and dismantling the police and creating community-led initiatives. I understand the concept of investing more within the community, but I think at the moment, if we was to go and dismantle all police forces and units, in particularly America, there's going to be more black people dying. There's going to be more black blood on American soil than there's ever been. Because what we don't understand is that when you get rid of a certain level of authority, there's going to be an uprising of those who are being oppressed by the authority, and I'm talking from the criminal level. I'm not talking about the oppression of black people. And now there might be criminals who are not acting in a particular sort of way because they know that within their areas there's undercover police, there's police on call every 2 minutes. But now if you find out that the police have been dismantled and there's a bunch of community police walking around who are not really police, they don't have guns and they're not really threatening, it's free for all. So I think that whole concept needs to be tackled better. I don't know if they require more scrutiny in regards to their training. They require more training and psychological analysis and input in regards to like their communication and their engagement with the community. I don't know, but I think if anything, maybe more needs to go into training, developing, and recruiting instead of dismantle, destroy, and rebuild. Because if I don't know if that's going to be effective enough, and I don't know the damages that can potentially lead to, which is a scary part.
I believe that if there is a dismantlement of the police system, it's going to be more chaos than now. There's something that why I like the the name Intrinsic Awareness, which I actually titled my book, is what I actually meant by that is the ability to to look at things in a profound way, to be aware intrinsically of things, which is actually what you just did. Not just looking at what the police are doing, but looking deep into what is going to be the result if if the police not just, the thing is we tend to see things at the surface, just at the surface, but we don't look deep into the profoundness of things, of ideas. I'm also, if as the statement, the sentence says, literally, Black Lives Matters. I think every reasonable person is going to be.
Yeah, we think that's fine. Yeah, and it should be acceptable.
I'm also for that. But when we say Black Lives Matters, we should also think about other races, because the thing is about me is, I don't like nationalism, and I don't like to be, identified as, obviously in a general sense, I'm a Nigerian, I'm a Black guy, But when it comes to a serious matter, to be identified as, a Nigerian, an African, a Black, I believe in the human race. So the thing is, I was actually discussing recently, about a few weeks ago, with some a girl from India, and she was, being adamant on the fact, on the idea that India is, the Indian police, they're perfect, they've never done anything wrong, and they've never, the Indian soldiers, they've never wronged the Pakistan, and she was so nationalist. And I asked her, what, she said she's for her country, and I asked her that, what if the law of your country, what if your country is injustice, is unjust on someone or some people? And she was, angry and everything. So why I mention that is that this idea of being belonging to some race or some nation or something like that, I don't buy it. I buy, human race. I'm a human, you're a human. So, and that's one of the things I told her is that if my country, as a Nigerian country, and your country came into clash, and I know that my country is on fear, I will never support my country against your country. Because how can I support injustice? I just prefer to leave it as,
yeah. So you stay neutral. You wouldn't pick a side.
The thing is, it may even depend on the gravity, of the situation. I may even pick a side. Because the thing is, it's like, you, for example, I remember when I was a kid, I have a cousin who always, often bully me, and some of my friends and everything. And I remember sometime, and he was bullying my friend. He was my brother, my cousin, which I liked so much. And he was bullying someone else that wasn't even, he may be my friend, and sometimes my friend, sometimes just someone just someone else. And I remember I was this kind of, feeble, weak person. When he touched me, I start crying and everything. But when I see injustice taking place, I couldn't bear it. Yeah. So I would stand against my cousin for that person, and he would smash me, and I would start crying. I would continue telling him, "You're wrong," and he would continue smashing me. I would basically, and I would continue smashing. So the thing is, be it a Nigerian, a black, Iranian, a Persian, a white, lives matters. Because now we're talking about blacks, black life in the UK. The same thing is happening all over the world.
Yeah.
It may not even be a racial something. Like in India, for example, even the Indians themselves.
Oh, they got deep colorism issue there.
They have exactly. They have they're Indians. They have caste actually. Caste, the lowest of the caste and the highest of the caste. Why all this?
Yeah.
We just
and historically, as we know, the lowest of the caste always tends to be the darkest of the skins, which obviously has its history in colonialism. But so going back to the whole picking side and being a nationalist, what I tend to find is that now that we live in a globalized world where I can travel from Ghana. Now I live in London. I've lived in Sweden before, and I think one of the problems with that is that whenever you're an immigrant into another country, I think that there needs to be a point where you find some sort of national relationship with the nation you're in, because there needs to be the common. And I think what tends to happen now is that without the common, we're fragmented. So it's like within like, so let's say for instance England right now. Within England, you've got people that identify as Nigerian, blah, 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 whatever. But when an issue arises, what brings us all together? And do we have a set of principles within England that enables us all to be proud to say, okay, for instance, I might be Nigerian, but in this sense now I live in England, so I have a commonality, I have a connection with that nation. But if you live somewhere and you're completely disconnected from it, then it becomes a bit of an issue, because then it becomes easier to fragment and polarize you. But I do understand, ideally, the most ideal scenario would be a case of we respect and love and have one human value. But it's very difficult when there's so many different elements of civilization. We've got religion, we've got our genders, we've got our race, we've got our castes, we've got absolutely so many variances of division, which is probably, you can't even count it. If you was to all put all the world's variances into one box, we would be unable to count it. And that's the problem. So if we can't organize a structure as a whole, because we're not going to, because we've been warring with each other, we've been having political issues, we've been having border issues, how can we create a more holistic on a national level?
On a national level, that is, if you find yourself in
yeah.
The thing is, one of the things generally is to know, to seek. Let me just put it that way. Learn the environment you are. Speak with as much as people. And talking about speaking, and that is the most important, you have to learn the language.
Yeah. Integration, I think, is essential to breaking barriers.
When you get to a place, it is a must for you to learn the language. The reason why I say that is language is actually the cradle of culture. When the language is dismantled, you know nothing about the culture. So if you want to know a culture, you want to know some people, you have to learn their language. And I've seen this so many times. I've seen at times, people talking, like here in France. And I know that these people are, they don't really understand French very well. And when they compare, when they're talking to maybe their children and everything, and then they try to compare or enforce some way of speaking in French to their children, you understand that this is something that is, this kind of word. Let me give you an example. In French, when, in the English word, you say you. Everybody, be it an adult, a young, 10 people, 100 people, you use the word you. In French, you use the word vous for many people, and tu for one person, sorry. But you can also use the word vous for someone you don't know, for formality. And tu for informal. Tu and vous is a matter of formality and informal. But in my language, Yoruba language, you have the equivalent. You have Iwo for two, which is you, and you have Eni for you, which is equivalent, but it's not the same usage.
Oh, okay.
In Yoruba language, you have you and you have Iwo for someone which is your mate or you're older than. And you have Eni for someone who is older than you. So now in French, it's just a matter of formality. Because in French, you can use tu for your mother. It's not a matter, you can't be talking to your mother in a formal manner. Yeah. You can use tu for your father, you can use tu for anybody you know. But in Yoruba language, you want to talk to your mother, you want to talk to the elder, you use Eni. So when the children here, who their parents doesn't really understand French, when they want to talk to maybe an elderly person, and they use vous, in the eyes of the parents, is a disrespect.
Oh, okay.
You understand?
Yeah.
At times, I just look at people and, the way they would deal with their children, at times, they don't understand. So that's why I say language is actually the cradle of culture. You have to understand the language, first of all. And then, plus that, engage with as much as people as you can. Integrate and seek, as in understand the people you're interacting with. You have to understand them. Because if you don't do that, then it's going to create some kind of margin between those that are, let me just say, immigrants and those that are not immigrants. And when the margin is created, then, that is a physical margin, then it's going to, it's coming to intellectual and psychological margin. That's, there will be this idea of we and them. And that's dangerous.
Yeah, that's a beautiful way to actually end it for today. That I just wanted to leave on that point, because what I was going to say was language as well. I definitely think language is a unifier, because being able to communicate is the first point of a truce. It's definitely the first point of building some sort of relationship. Like what we're doing right now, we're communicating with each other. We're getting understanding of how each other thinks. We're creating some sort of a relationship, a bond, which could lead to other forms of connections, business, wherever it may be. So it's definitely the key to it. But yeah, it's been an absolutely pleasure, and I would definitely like to catch up with you another time. We'll continue. There were so many things that was coming into my head, but I think it's best to save it and we'll continue, because I just love the way you think. I love your mindset, and yeah, I'm definitely gonna check out your book as well.
It's been absolutely amazing. I really love this.
Yeah, no, I thoroughly enjoyed it. I didn't know what to expect first, because I liked your work. Sometimes you can like someone's work, but then when you're getting in contact with them and you're connecting with them, it could be a different type of relationship and a different mindset of thinking and thought. But definitely, you're everything I expected you to be and more. So we're definitely gonna catch up again, and I appreciate you coming on the podcast today. It's been an absolute pleasure. What you got planned for the rest of your day?
Let me just say I'm going to rest.
Yeah.
I'm going to find something to eat and then I'm praying.